Hello everyone, AV Ultimate here, bringing you some more Battlefield 3 multiplayer gameplay on Noshahr Canals, and this is the Rush version. Now, I apologize for missing the first few minutes of the video, but nothing really happened. As you can see, we've only lost a few tickets and got a base, but didn't really do anything. And today I'm going to talk about my general Conquest tactics. I've mentioned them throughout most of my videos and a lot in my tips and tricks video, but it's always good to confirm details, and it's good to, I guess, pack it all into one video so you guys have it fresh in your minds. And that idea was submitted by Flip the Shy. You know, he just wanted some more of my Conquest tactics, and I'll be mentioning that in just a few minutes. But first, I wanted to mention that if you don't know already, I have a Facebook and Twitter account. Be sure to like me and follow me there. If you are on Facebook or Twitter a lot more than you are YouTube, then it'd be a good asset to you to go up there and subscribe. So, this video contains not only individual effort from myself, but also from my team. They did extremely well on the last few sets. And even on these first two, this map is extremely hard to get past the first few sets, especially if somebody knows how to use the anti-air gun, which that can be a really good asset if you know how to use it. If you haven't tried already, just get good at the AA gun. That thing is amazing. I went 27-1 with it on this map one time, and it wasn't even that hard. And later in the video, I am driving a Venom, which is the transport helicopter, and I was just keeping it in the air, letting people mobile spawn onto it. And yes, if you didn't know, it is similar to the Amtrak in that it can mobile spawn teammates straight from spawn, so that's a very handy tool to use, especially if you know how to drive a helicopter. If you don't, then keep watching. I guess it's a good demonstration how to drive a helicopter. I keep it in the air for a while, so that's a good sign, I guess. Now on to the main topic of my Conquest tactics. When I first start out a round, I like to call it, like, the people are usually sleeping. I use this tactic in Counter-Strike, usually for the first round of a game, where I rush right away, because, you know, people are usually spawning, still loading up the game, picking their classes, wandering around spawn. So if you can get to your objective very quickly, you can keep most enemies on the back foot and kind of set your own tone for the match. Meaning, if you kind of keep the enemy back and under duress the whole time, they won't have time to set up or take an advantage. They'll feel really offset the whole time. So if you can do that for each set and not just really dally around, you can really win a game easily. Gives the enemy, you know, a bad mindset. And if you can, as I've said in many of my videos, take a vehicle to your objective. They move faster, so you can obviously do what I just said even better. Anything, Jeep, LAV, tank, aircraft, just make sure you use those vehicles the correct way. As you might already see now, I am in the transport helicopter, just trying to keep it alive for anyone who wants to spawn in there. And kind of something that is an interesting thought is that when you are in an aircraft, it keeps people's attention away from the ground. For example, I believe the anti-air gun is currently shooting at me, so as long as I'm keeping this in the air, it won't be paying attention to our ground troops. That includes anyone who's shooting stingers at me. Anyone who's looking up in the air isn't looking at the ground, so it keeps our boys safe. Just a little interesting tidbit. Now, as you're moving to the objective, you want to try taking the least traveled path, meaning don't try going on the main road, highway, or through a main entrance. Try going at a wide angle, pretty much flanking when heading anywhere you go. It might take longer, but usually you'll take people off guard, and in the end it'll be worth it. because you end up probably planting or taking enemies out that would have killed teammates that were moving up the main road. And for defending, keep that in mind. Some people know this and will usually try to flank. That's usually some people's main plan, and that's usually my plan. Just watch the main entrances like most of the time, but every couple seconds, every minute or so, take a look at that other entrance that someone might be coming in through, the sideways or back door. You never know, you could catch them trying to catch you off guard. And just keep all these things in mind. Just metagame it. As long as you're thinking and visualizing what you want to do and what's happening, you can usually predict what's going to happen in the game. Which, once you get good at that, that's when you start getting extremely good. Not really just fundamental tactics, but also being able to metagame and kind of predict where people will be coming from, how they'll be using the vehicles on the particular map. But most tactics can be really changed based off what map you're using, especially this one. My first point, where you want to keep your enemies on the back foot and keep pushing. For the first part, it's pretty hard on this map in particular because you have to cross this body of water. If you, let's say if our whole team kind of stayed in the boat for a whole minute and then tried to attack, I assure you it would be extremely harder because vehicles would have made it up to the beachhead and enemies would have set up right there. And I think it becomes almost impossible to make it across the water, especially when an anti-air gun is on the docks, because the range in that thing is very high and it can kill boats and people and the Amtrak all the way from the docks over to the boat. I've seen that happen, and you don't want that to happen. And this is usually the case for rush maps, where the first part is usually really long distances, and then it starts to get smaller and smaller. And that kind of sleeping tactic is presented in every single rush map. I think DICE did really well with implementing that, because they know that in the beginning people aren't going to be paying attention that much. So they need the attackers to be a bit farther away than the rest of the set so they can set up easier. If it was the same distance for every set, I'm sure attackers would be a much harder time defending the first part. Speaking of which, my reposition and reacquire tactic, which I mentioned in my tips and tricks video, if you haven't seen it already, check it out. I talk about all what I'm saying right now and more in it. As I said, I'm just packing it all into one video so I can keep you guys refreshed. Now, my reposition and reacquire tactic, it's pretty much in the middle of a camping and running gun style, where you're using bits and pieces from each one, where it is you sit at one spot for a short amount of time and assess everything around you, see if there are enemies, where your friendlies are compared to your position, and then make a logical choice and move to your next position. And you do this pretty quickly. As you get used to learning the metagame and how people move around the map, it'll get easier to move from spot to spot and know when you should move. And like I said, this usually takes longer, but it's very effective, and you usually won't lose as many tickets as you would just running from place to place as fast as you can and somehow missing enemies. And keep that in mind. You want to clear forward areas for your teammates so they don't die when bringing up the rear. I've seen it many times where people kind of run past enemies that they could have easily killed, and they end up getting other teammates killed. So you want to be careful with that. Speaking of the radar, you always need to be looking and staring down at that every couple seconds. 90% of the time, it can be the determining factor in whether you live or die, because it tells you everything, where friendlies and enemies are. If anyone's spotted, it's immediately placed on your radar. If anyone's shooting, it's placed on your radar. So if you keep in mind to look down there every couple of seconds, I swear you'll be winning way more. If you've ever played StarCraft, you know how valuable it is to be looking at your mini-map a whole lot. This is also very helpful in Call of Duty, especially when a UAV is up. It is so nice to know where your enemies are at all times. Obviously, wherever the objective is on your map, that's usually where enemies are streaming from. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to be you don't want your back to be to the enemy. always be facing wherever there's the most danger. Always be shooting at someone who could do the most damage to you. For example, if you see two guys standing out in the open, the one that's looking at you and possibly will shoot at you is the one you should kill first. And I guess that segues well into gunplay. I guess I should touch on that just a little bit. Guns are very, very balanced, I've noticed, in Battlefield. Anytime there is a up in something, there's a down in something, meaning if it has a high rate of fire, it does lower damage. If it does more damage, it has a low rate of fire and high recoil. So every time something gets better, something gets worse. So keep that in mind when choosing weapons, and you'll have a great idea on which ones you can choose and what feels better for you. For example, the F2000, it has a high rate of fire and low recoil, but it does a little bit less damage than the other rifles, but it has still pretty good DPS. Most of the engineer weapons are high recoil, but high damage and high rate of fire. So just you trade off things. But there are some weapons that do have more pros than cons. I'll leave that up to you to figure out which ones are the right ones for you. Because honestly, a lot of the weapons are pure preference, and people could have different opinions on what weapons are good or bad. Some people who think a weapon is useless could be gold to people who, to some people. You just gotta find what you like best. Oh, a little tactic that'll come up in just a few seconds is that I pick up a support class, and I end up throwing down his special ability, which is ammo resupply. So if you happen to be running out of ammo, just, if you can, find a dead support guy lying around, pick up his kit, throw down a box, and there you go. You have now full ammo, and you never had to use anyone else or anything. It's a little tip you can use. Now, most of what I said pertained to attacking. When you're defending an objective, usually you want to be away from it, specifically toward the attacker's spawn, so you can meet them in the field and take away tickets away from them there. So you have a bit of a buffer, so you're not fighting them in your base, because it'll give you more time to take more tickets off if you kind of kill and take them farther away from your objective, and you keep doing that as you move back and back and back. And you can win very easily doing that as well. It's practically my reposition and reacquire tactic, but moving backwards. Now, another thing I wanted to mention about gunplay is, don't forget that in Battlefield 3 there is a fire selector implemented into almost every gun. Some people don't know this because, you know, most games don't have this ability to do that. So keep that in mind. When you hit the V key, for some guns you are able to change between fully automatic, burst, and semi-auto. At long ranges, you need to use that semi-automatic to be a bit more accurate, get fewer shots on, and don't forget to switch back to fully auto when going into close quarter battles. I have forgot to do that just a few times. Even at shorter ranges, especially if the enemy is not paying attention to you, you want to try bursting or even switching to your semi-automatic, and if you can, shoot them in the head, because it's possible that sometimes there won't be a dead support guy or an alive support guy there to give you more rounds back. So you want to try to conserve your ammo. That'll even help you more stay alive during games if you're able to just use your weapon correctly. If you're having trouble with that, you can use the ammo specialization, which is usually the case for the assault class. Oh, one thing that I wanted to mention real quick was that actually could have been said in my previous video about squad tactics on Grand Mazar, which also works here in this case for just general tactics, are the squad specializations. They are specials that not only work for yourself, but also for your squad mates. You can see them right down there on the bottom left next to your name. Right in the middle of the name and the class. And when you use, like for example, I use the explosive specialization, and everyone else in my squad will get the extra 7 rockets that I get. Unfortunately, squad's tactics cannot be stacked, so I can't have 4 guys with just ammo, and then we'd end up getting, I think, 1,000 rounds each if it did work. That'd be a little overpowered, so don't even bother trying that. It'll only use the effect of one of them. And the only reason both of us have explosives is because I wasn't really paying attention till I didn't notice until the very end of the video that everyone had specials for our squad. So I didn't really bother mentioning it because we were doing well anyway. And it's a very good implementation from DICE. This is a very team-based game, so just being able to not only use your perks that are preference to yourself, but also can be used for teammates as well. It's a very nice thought process. So grab, some friends and use perks that, or not perks, specializations that complement each other. And we are coming to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the gameplay and commentary. As I said, they will be coming out on a weekly basis. I don't want to shove them out too quickly because then, it'll become stale and dull, and I don't want that to happen. I want to give you guys quality stuff and be able to think about what I want to talk about and get a gameplay that kind of reflects what I'm talking about, but that doesn't always happen. So, with that said, be sure to post down in the comments for the next topic you might want me to talk about, or a guide idea. Thinking about doing maybe another guide about something more specific like vehicles or maps in particular. So definitely post if you want that, or not, or just give your own idea. I do look at them, and I'll definitely credit you in the video if I do use your idea. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like the video and favorite it. And don't forget, I have a Facebook and Twitter page, so be sure to like me and follow me there as well. And while you're at it, just subscribe to me on here. My name is AVUltima, and I will see you guys next time. Oh, I almost forgot. If you guys haven't seen the news already, the Battlefield 3 content pack, Back to Karkand, will be coming out December 13th for PC and Xbox 360. And it'll be coming out December 6th for PS3. I'm not sure why it's coming out a week early for PS3, but everyone has their hold on some games. Surprisingly, it's not PC first, but whatever, I can wait. So be sure to check back later to see my new videos for Back to Karkand in the Gulf of Oman. See ya!